Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 230. Cast is everything. Ridley Scott.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's episode is brought to you by Blackbox. Blackbox is a new platform and community that is all about financial freedom for filmmakers like you. If you join Blackbox, you will be transformed from being a worker to being a maker of your own content. And you'll be making steady passive income from the global market. Blackbox currently allows you to upload your stock footage once, get it to many global agencies, and then allows you to share that passive income stream with your collaborators. Whether you want to submit old footage that's been sitting around in your hard drives or create brand new content, Blackbox is for you. It's really quite revolutionary. With Blackbox, filmmakers can concentrate on making great content while Blackbox takes care of all the business BS. Just visit www.blackbox.global to find out more. Today's show is also sponsored by Studio Unknown. Studio Unknown is a crack team of audio post professionals known for quality sound on any indie budget. Whether you need a lush surround sound mix or a quick festival submission pass, Studio Unknown can help you with all of your post sound needs, from sound design and mix to Foley, ADR, and even a custom score. Contact Studio Unknown and mention the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, and you'll get 50% off one day of ADR or 10% off your complete post sound package. Just go to studiounknown.com. So today's guest is a returning champion. Actually, he is the champion. He's been on the show, I think, 6 times at least for all the things that we've done together. RB Botto from stage32.com is back on the show. And today we're going to be talking about crowdsourcing for filmmakers, how to actually build an audience, how to, really use the power of the crowd. And his new book is called Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers, Indie Film and the Power of the Crowd, which is presented by the American Film Market, which is a pretty big deal. They don't pick many books a year to put their name on. So I've read the book. It's amazing. He really gets into the details and the weeds of how to really understand building that tribe, building that audience up, how to work with them, how to provide value to them, and how to have that crowd support you, support your projects and what you're trying to do as an artist and as a creative. And this is such an invaluable topic to talk about because so many filmmakers I talk to have no understanding about social media, have no understanding about how to create an audience or how to interact with an audience even once you've created one. It's just such a kind of black magic art form, if you will. And me and RB really sit down in an, of course, epic conversation. Every time me and RB sit down and talk, it runs. So we're close to 2 hours on this episode because that's just the way we roll. But there's so much information in there. There is a ton of knowledge bombs in there. So please take a listen to the whole thing. I think you're really going to like it a lot. Oh, and there's also a little treat. We also discuss RB's part in my new feature film, On the Corner of Ego and Desire. I pulled him out of retirement for acting, and he does have a part in the movie, a very significant part, and we will talk about that as well. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with RB Botto from Stage 32. I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion RB Botto from Stage 32. Brother, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you for having me back. What, 5 times now?
This is our 5th time, I think at least the 5th one. You are the record holder on the podcast for the most recurring guest between our Holly Shorts conferences, our Sundance interview, and the original interview that launched our relationship back in number 29. And
wow.
we're now at 220 as of this recording, 228.
Well, in post, I want the ringside bell to ring for the champ.
Of course, Rocky. Of course,
and
Rocky.
It's like sort of like the Saturday Night Live 5-time host club, right? I get to be the first one, right?
The whatchamacallit, the bathrobe is on its way.
The bathrobe, right? Yes.
The bathrobe is on.
I may be wearing one right now. You'll never know.
But for some strange reason, I think you are, sir. I just don't know why. Smoking a
jacket,
cigar.
Yeah.
There's a Manhattan in your hand. I just see
Yes.
it.
Yes.
So we're here today to talk about your book that took you 75 years to write.
Yeah, and a half, 75 and a half.
I think we were talking about this when I first interviewed you 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's called Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers, Indie Film, and the Power of the Crowd.
Yes.
And it apparently is a runaway success right now. It's doing very well, you said. Your publisher's very happy?
Yes, I've been told by Focal it's one of the best-selling titles that they've had, and they've been around for 20-something years. It's under the American Film Market Presents banner, which I think AFM picks maybe 2 or 3 titles a year for that. So I don't think that's hurt me at all, and I'm very pleased with that. And the reviews have been off the charts. I think there's over 55-star reviews on Amazon already, which I'm very, very pleased with. I'm always pleased when people leave these reviews. I actually got one star review where the complaint was that I gave examples.
That was the problem, that you gave examples?
That was the review. If you like examples, this is a book for you. I was like, I feel like that should be 5 stars.
If you want information about crowdsourcing for filmmakers, this effing book is for you.
It's for you. Otherwise, don't buy it. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was like, maybe they were dyslexic or something. Maybe they thought dyslexic with the stars. Maybe they thought maybe 1 meant 5. I don't know.
Everybody has an opinion. There's always a hater out there. Trust me. You know it as well as I do. I'm sure you've had your taste of haterade in your day.
In my day, yes. But but 55-star reviews, so I'll take those over the one. I gave too much information.
But but the funny thing is, isn't it crazy how we artists are, that you could have 1,000 positive reviews, but the one negative one is the one that sticks in your head?
Nah, well,
sometimes.
I will say this, and because I don't want this to be a negative thing. There have been so many people that have written so many beautiful things on Amazon who have written me about this book and talked about how it's changed their entire perspective, and in some cases changed their lives because, with the life-changing part of it, not to sound dramatic or, like, oh my God, I'm curing cancer.
You're the second.
Right. I'm curing cancer here or whatever. But where it's the life-changing ones have come in the context of, I was ready to give up because, I didn't understand how to build an audience. I couldn't get any traction. I had some things that failed. I didn't understand how to do it. And that's extremely rewarding. And some of these people have written just beautiful, beautiful reviews and sent me photos with the book and things like that, because that's part of my ask at the end of the book. So I can't say enough. And if you're listening and you are one of the people that left one of those unbelievable reviews, I can't tell you how grateful I am, because you can't leave a note on Amazon. They don't allow you to do that. So I'm saying it now.
Yeah, it's wonderful. When you get good reviews, it makes you feel like you can keep going. Because what we do is not easy.
No, and it's like we were talking about off air. Look, nobody's getting rich off this book, and I never went into this thing thinking that, thinking that I was going to break the bank, or that I was going to be, trading publishing notes with Stephen King anytime soon, or with any other bestselling author you can think of. But I wrote it because one, I was asked, and two, because I felt like I had something to offer and I could bring some value to people, and for people to creatives to recognize that that is well worth it, and has made the whole journey very rewarding.
Yeah, unless your name is King, Rowling, or Patterson, you're not really making a whole lot of money on book sales.
No, not really.
So let's get into it. So what is the difference between crowdsourcing and crowdfunding? Because I know there is a lot of misunderstanding in regards to both.
Yeah, misunderstandings, misconceptions, and I want to settle one other one before we jump into that, and that is, the book is called Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers. We talked about this a little bit, and I was talking about it over the weekend at FilmCon, the conference that we hosted, that, it's not, I kind of went to the mattresses with my publishers about this, because I wanted it to be called Crowdsourcing Film Creatives, because the reality of the situation is the strategies and all the information within is applicable to actors, screenwriters, filmmakers, cinematographers, crew people, And then beyond Focal publishes film books, so that's why this is, a filmmaking book. But realistically, it's for entrepreneurs and business people. The tenets and the strategies and the rules, if you will, are applicable to everyone looking to build an audience for the brand of them, the brand of their projects, the brand of their products. It doesn't matter. It's really for everybody. So I just want to clear that up, because a lot of people just say, oh man, filmmakers, why don't you do one for screenwriters? And I'm like, no.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's for all film creatives. And again, even if you're an entrepreneur, and I consider all creatives to be entrepreneurs, because really you are the CEO.
As they
CEO
should.
of you. Yeah, you're the CEO of you. But crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, you asked. Yes, people will always say to me, thank you for writing this book. I'm looking to raise money. I'm like, hold on. Crowdfunding, I'm gonna give you the good news and the bad news. It's not a crowdfunding book, but that's just kind of bad news. The good news, there's a lot of good news to come. The good news is that, let me define it first. Crowdfunding is raising funds either through equity-based or reward-based crowdfunding. You go to the audience, you raise funds they either get in equity-based crowdfunding to get a piece of the film. In rewards-based, they usually get some sort of either tchotchke or reward, or an EP, depending on what the person that's running the project wants to give away. And then crowdsourcing is all about identifying, engaging, and moving an audience on behalf of you, the brand of your projects, the brand of your products. And it's all about how do you go about finding who that audience is, engaging them in a proper way, giving them ownership of what you're doing, getting them involved in what you're doing to the point where they're so passionate about you or the project, or in some cases both, and we can talk about that a little bit as we go along, that they want to move on your behalf to spread the word for you and to go out there and build an army of support. So you have an army of supporters, like, as I like to say, boots on the ground, that are going out and spreading like wildfire the word of you, your projects, or your the brand of you, the brand of your projects, or the brand of your products.
Now, you touched on something a little earlier, right before that all creatives should be entrepreneurs. I really want to focus a little bit on that statement, because it's something that I preach constantly, and so many filmmakers, so many screenwriters, so many creatives don't think of themselves as entrepreneurs. They just like, oh, I'm just a work for hire, or I'm just an artist. I don't want to think about that kind of stuff. I think in today's world, if you do not think yourself as an entrepreneur, the chances of you making it, even if you're in the studio system, or going after the studio system kind of work, you still have to think of yourself as an entrepreneur. Do you agree?
Not only do I agree, but I think it's the reason why the subject of crowdsourcing at this moment is legitimately and seriously the most important thing that we could be discussing, because we're living in a DIY world. All right. We're living in, and what I mean by a DIY world is that there is more content being created than ever. There are more people trying to take control of their material than ever before. There are more creatives that have worked in one space, let's say as an actor or as a screenwriter, who now want to become filmmakers or producers so that they can control their own content, that are going out there trying to find their own financing. It is more important than ever to understand the concepts and the tenets of crowdsourcing, because the idea is you are an entrepreneur and you do have a brand, and you may even have brands that have sort of sub-brands, if you will. So everybody is trying to fight for that same little piece of ground, right? Everybody is on social media trying to rise above the noise, and we can get into some best practices and everything like that. The question becomes, how do you separate yourself from the pack? How do you identify an audience for what you're looking to do, what your projects are about, what you're about in general, and then engage them in such a way that they become champions of you. Mm-hmm. In this business, you are nothing without champions. You are nothing without relationships. And the problem is that there's so many people in this business that all they concern themselves with is the craft. But the reality of the situation is you have to understand the business, and you have to understand the brand of you and where it fits in, and how you're going to attract an army of people that are going to go to war for you and in support of you. Mm-hmm. That is really what separates out the people that have major success from the people who don't. I always say, if you look at two equally talented people, if you will, mm-hmm. the one that has the most success isn't the lucky one. I hate when people say, oh, they're so lucky. It's not luck. They're putting themselves in the best position to win. They're building the right relationships. They're nurturing those relationships. They're asking their audience and the people that the army that they built to go out on their behalf, because they built that audience in a selfless, giving way, in a giving way that's presented value the whole way through. Those are the people that are winning every day. They just are.
Who is the director of Jurassic World? He was also the Safety Not Included.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do know what you're talking about.
God, I'll have to look it up. But that director, he went from Safety Not Guaranteed, which was a small indie movie, which was like under $3 million, $4 million, mm-hmm. which starred Mark Duplass, to Jurassic World. Mm-hmm. And people were like, how the hell did that happen? And from what I heard on the street was that he had champions.
No doubt.
He had been writing for a while, but he always was in the conversation for these big movies, for these big tentpole movies, to the point where his name finally came up. I think from what I heard that he had made a relationship with Brad Pitt. And I think at that last point, Steven Spielberg even said he's okay. He's good. And that's the way he walked in, because you don't get a major franchise, relaunching a major franchise like that without some champions.
There's no question. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm kind of in a unique position where, I've worked as an actor, a writer, a producer throughout my career, or an actor, let's say just on the front end as an actor and a writer. And then I've been on the other side where I've worked as a producer, where talent is sort of coming to me, or where, the money, we're going to get the money and everything like that. I've seen it from both ends. And the reality of the situation is that more often than not, and especially more often in this day and age, if it comes down to, making a decision on a couple of different people or in the direction you're going, more often than not, and I would literally say like 99.9 times out of 100, the person that comes with that army of support behind them, the person that comes with those champions, the champions speaking loudly for that person to either get that role or be involved in the project or get that gig or whatever the hell it is, mm-hmm. that's the person that usually gets it. Okay. And at least always gets them in the room. And I actually saw this recently on a screenplay that I wrote that is at Covert Media, and we were attaching our director. The director, I can't get too far into this story because it's still evolving and everything like that. But it was a situation where some of the people on the team said, okay, there's some accomplishments there, but, there's some other directors in play. And, they have, maybe their accomplishments are a little bit more, their credits are a little bit stronger. They're maybe, they had a hit more, more recently and things like that. Mm-hmm. But there were a few of us that said, no, you know what? Get in the room. Let him in the room. You have to see the way this guy handles the room. And you got to see. And we went down that road. And sure enough, that, because there were these voices that were trusted voices in the room, which we were, they said, okay. Let's hear it. Let's hear him out. And he went in and he won over the room twice.
But without those voices, he'd never get in the room.
He wouldn't have been on the list. He would have been off the list, because we were going down the list one by one, going, nah, man, maybe, yeah, he's on. Yeah, we'll talk to him. Yeah. And that's what we were doing. That's what the whole meeting was about. And it was one of these things like, nah, I don't know. And it was like, all right, if you guys really believe that, we trust what you're saying, and we believe you guys, and we know you guys, we never want to hurt the project, and let's have him in. And it mattered. And this is a guy that networks all the time. This mm-hmm. is a guy that is out there, and he networks in a very selfless way. Anytime you're in this guy's company and he knows people around him, he's making introductions. It's not always about him. It's that selflessness thing that we always talk about, that rule of three, that we always talk about, give 3 times before you ask for anything. He has a lot of that in him. And that's, the most successful people who crowdsource and the most successful people that build relationships really have that, kind of inbred, or they learn, people can learn it, But, it's adapting that sort of mindset, you know what I mean? And most people don't have that. Most people don't.
No, and it's also like I know of a guy, a friend of mine, who works for a company that does stuff, for the film industry, and he's constantly connecting me with people. Like he's like constantly introducing it, and then I always try to do that as much as possible. And then I've introduced people to you, you've introduced people to me. It's just something that we do. Like, oh, these guys will get along. Great, boom, here you go. And I do it selfishly, like no reason. I'm not asking anything of it. I'm like, I just want to put two people who I think will do good together or should meet each other, meet them. And if something happens one day in the future about it, great. But it's not even my thought process. It's just about helping those people selflessly at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, kindness and generosity pays. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it really isn't. I mean, this is a business of.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
It's a small business and people really do want to help each other. And it's, the people in this industry, a lot of them get a bad rap. And that's not to say that there aren't selfish people and egotistical people in this business. There certainly are. They're usually at the higher level and they're probably not in a position where they feel like they need to give. But there are so many people in this industry who do want to give. I mean, I'm at meetings all the time where people are, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And I love that. And I mean, there isn't one meeting that I don't go into where that's not a question that I ask. And usually it's the first question I ask. What are you up to? Well, one of the first, like, what are you up to? Any way I could help you. Any way I could help you get where you're looking to do right now or help you get where you're looking to go right now. That's not a game. You know what I mean? That's inbred in me. I know it's important. Okay. And I know it's part of relationship building. And it's not like you said, it's not like I'm looking for something in return. It's just that, look, this is the way that you build long lasting and fruitful relationships.
Absolutely.
And it's weird because, you and I have had this conversation a lot. For some people that are listening to this right now, they're going to go like, well, isn't that obvious? You may think so.
No, it's not.
I'll tell you what, if you really think it's that obvious, here's what I challenge you to do. Go on Twitter and click on your home screen and start scrolling through. Start looking through your stream and you'll see how many people have the wrong approach. It's insane. And I always talk about having a competitive advantage in this business and trying to find every competitive advantage you can get. The people that actually handle themselves well on social media and understand how to manage their brand on social media have a competitive advantage over probably 90% of the people out there. And that's something that you could put into practice today. You know what I mean? So it does matter and it does have an impact. And man, I could tell you stories where it's had an impact where people haven't gotten jobs just simply because of the way that they handle themselves either in a room or online.
Absolutely. And just to go back to what we were talking about earlier, the director's name is Colin Trevorrow. Trevorrow.
Yes,
Thank you. Colin Trevorrow. So now everybody's like, oh, thank God. It was probably driving people listening crazy, like, who is that? Or the opposite, like, it's Colin, Alex. Colin. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, somebody screamed his name out while running on the treadmill and at the entire gym just looking at them. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, what are some common mistakes when crowdsourcing or just doing social media in general?
Well, when you get on social media, when you sign up for any account, for any platform, you're really basically being handed a microphone, right? So that microphone, now you have direct access to people and you have an amplified voice. That's fantastic. But that doesn't mean that you go into the middle of a crowd. Now think about this. If you were on a city street, you wouldn't run into the middle of a crowd and go, me. Like me, look at me, me. But that's really what you're doing on social media. And a lot of people do that. And nothing makes me tune out faster than somebody that their first point of contact with me is look at my, check out my, help me with, that kind of thing. That bothers the hell out of me. Okay. Mm-hmm. I always say, treat your online persona and treat your online behavior the same way that you would offline. So, if you're going, I think that people get so freaking crazy behind their screens that they don't realize that this is a human interaction because all they see is, an icon or an avatar or whatever. Right. So they don't realize that it's a human thing, and it really is. It's a relationship thing. So for me, if I'm looking to go connect with somebody, and everybody is accessible pretty much on social media, and there's been plenty of times that I have gone searching for or trying to connect with somebody who has achieved a very high level of success and, may not want to respond to me. What I always try to do is, first of all, I do my research, because that's another huge mistake that people make. They have no idea who they're talking to, or they know the name, but they know nothing about them, or they know nothing about what, and they approach them in a way that, again, is not only selfish, but maybe is coming from a place that's not very knowledgeable. Those people are going to get ignored. For me, if I'm approaching somebody for the first time, not only am I going to make it about them, but I'm going to make it personal in a way that makes them realize, and I'm not going to talk to them about the biggest success or the most obvious thing. I'm going to talk to them about something that, a video that I saw where they talked about a specific thing 5 years ago. Why, do you still think like that as times, if times change? Like, you make it something that makes them go, wow, this guy really, knows a little bit about me, and made it personal. That's another mistake that people make. They don't know who their target is. They don't understand who they're going after and who they're talking to. So those are two obvious ones, I guess, a little bit in a way, again, to some people, but not very obvious. I mean, again, even on Stage 32, I'll get hit up every day, even on like Instagram or Twitter, where people will send me direct messages and say, what is stage32.com?
Right.
And I'll say, well, in the time it took you to write that, you could have typed that into a browser and you could have figured out what stage32.com is. Like, you know what I mean? It's an awareness thing. It's, again, what would you do in a real life? I hate saying real life and online life, but, some people relate to that. In, a real life confrontation or in a real life engagement, what would you do? Do the same thing online. Just be selfless. I mean, that's a good way in. The other mistake that people make is that the material that they post, again, I feel like I'm saying obvious things, but it's true. The material that they post is, again, like, here's a clip from my film. Here's a clip. And it's like, no. Share content. Ask questions. Be personal. Be a communicator. Don't be a broadcaster. Be a communicator. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake on social media, is that people are broadcasters and not communicators.
Yeah, without question. And I think one of the stories that you have in your little bag of tricks that you always bring out, which I love, is the Austin Film Festival story. Can you tell that? Can you tell that story? Because it's such an allegory.
It is, and it's in the book. So I'm going to tell us that she still buy the book. No, I'll tell it.
There's a few other things in the book besides the story.
There's a ton of stuff in the book, but yeah, the Austin Film Festival story is just an unbelievable one, and it's all right. So there is a director. The Austin Film Festival, if you're not familiar with it, is a screenwriting centric. It's a film festival, but the conference that's attached to it is a screenwriter centric conference. So everything revolves around screenwriting. They get some very, very good panelists down there and speakers down there. They're usually pretty accomplished screenwriters, or at least some of them are. One of them that is down there kind of often is somebody you would all know. I'm not going to name him. He's somebody you would all know. He has a couple of Oscars to his name.
You got to tell me his name off air.
Yeah, I will. And he's a writer director, and he's written some of the biggest blockbusters of all time. He also wrote some really great independent films and directed some of those. And then he kind of fell out of favor, and now he's kind of back in vogue again as these things happen in Hollywood, especially in the studio system. But anyway, he was down at the Austin Film Festival, and I got to he suffers no fools, this guy, and he's just an interesting cat, man. And I had seen him like sort of eviscerate somebody the year before and on a panel asking a stupid question, and him and I, kind of became friends. We would sit down in between panels sometimes, because at the Austin Film Festival there's there's a hotel bar that everybody goes to after the panels are over, and that's one of the beautiful things about it, is that the writers can mingle with the panelists, and the panelists hang out and everything like that. So he said to me, "Let's go grab a drink before the last panel lets out, because then it's going to be madness." And I said, okay, fantastic. And we were sitting on the couch in the bar having a cocktail, and all of a sudden the last panel comes out, and now they come rushing in. And there's a line of people that are there's a line starting to form sort of in front of him. And he goes, okay, here we go. And he says, all right, here's what we're going to do. He goes, one at a time. He goes, and the rest of you line up at least 10 feet behind, because he didn't want anyone behind overhearing his conversation with anyone he was speaking to.
Sure.
Or speaking with. So the first guy comes up, and he's all swagger, And I wish I could, I wish this wasn't all audio because I would act it out a little bit because it's great. I mean, it really is great. And he's all swagger. And I mean, it was one of these things where, I think the guy took 2 steps and I was like, man, this is going to end badly. This is he hadn't even opened his mouth yet, but I'm like, this is
the energy was just flowing off of him.
Like, this is just going to end badly. You could just see it, the body language, the swagger. And he walks up and he says, how you doing? He goes, my name's Joe. And he's like, he starts going into this whole thing. He goes, I have this screenplay and he just launches. I mean, he just launches into this thing. And this writer-director who is being pitched now just starts looking around the room, starts sipping his drink. He checks out the TV where ESPN is playing. He's doing everything. He leaned back to me and he said, you want another? When the waitress came by. And this guy, the guy pitching didn't skip a beat, just kept going.
Sure.
And didn't make eye contact with this guy once. So finally, he hits the end. Joe hits the end, and he says, so what do you think? You want to read my script? And this guy says to him, he goes, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, were you talking to me this entire time? And he put his hand out, and he goes, and he said, he said his name, and he said, what was your name? And the guy was like, well, the kid's like, Joe. And he goes, Joe. He goes, so this entire time, he goes, I'm assuming, he goes, I guess you were just pitching me your screenplay, huh? And he said, well, yeah. And he goes, well, Joe, he goes, let me tell you something. He goes, if I was stranded on a desert island, he goes, and all my favorite books washed out to sea,
oh, shit.
I wouldn't read your fucking screenplay. Who's next? Right?
Damn.
So next comes up.
So he just walked away with his tail between his legs.
Oh,
He was just like completely devastated.
Yeah. And deservedly so. And deservedly so. I mean, this was a guy that should have known better. You know what I mean?
He wasn't 15 years old.
No.
Got it.
So he walks away and up comes this woman and, probably I would say, maybe 24, 25. And she says, she introduces herself, she shakes his hand and she says to him, and this is her opening. She says, I wanted to ask you a question about, and she names a film that was his biggest bomb by far. Okay. And an indie film that just completely bombed. And she said, there's a scene in the film where this actress says this line, and she said the line. She goes, and I couldn't help but feel that maybe the actress improv'd that line, that maybe, that it might not have been written that way. And I'm just curious, did you decide to write it that way, or was that an actor choice or her choice? And he just looked at her like he was dumbfounded. And he looked at her and he said, okay, 2 things. He goes, first of all, he goes, outside of my wife, he goes, you're the only person that's seen this movie. He goes, I think it opened at 9:00. He goes, at the Landmark in LA, and I think it was out of theaters by 9:03. He goes, second of all, he goes, I can't believe not only that you recognize this in a scene, he goes, but that this is what you wanted to ask me about. He goes, you are 100% right. He goes, I wrote that scene 10 times. He goes, we could not get it right. He goes, it just was not working. And the actress said to me, let me take a shot at it. And I said, okay. And she nailed it. And we were like, holy hell, let's move on. So he said to her, he goes, tell me about you. Okay. Because isn't that going to be the natural next question, right? And she went into all about her writing and everything she did and, and what she was working on right now. And he reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out a business card. And he says to her, I come down here every year with 3 of these cards. Most years I go home with all 3. When you go home, you send me the script that you think is the best that you would like me to read. I will read it. I will call you and we will go over it. And I will see if I can help you with it.
Wow.
Okay. Not only did he do that and did he follow through on his promise, but he ended up helping her get her rep, her manager. He ended up helping her get her that led to her getting her agent. And today they are still very, very close friends to the point where he sends her drafts of his scripts. And again, if you knew who this was,
I can't wait to find out.
The fact that this woman is getting drafts of these scripts in complete confidence, you would be some people on this listening to this podcast would be jealous enough to run into traffic.
Wow.
So, but that just goes to show you, it's all about approach, and it's all she made it about him. And what a lot of people in this business don't realize is that, you know, so many people are so anxious to come. I mean, like, even at FilmCon, we just did this conference, like I said, at the LA Convention Center. It was 14 hours. And I was being pulled in a million different directions. 3 panels. You saw it.
Yes, you were being beat up left and right, man.
Even at the end of a 14-hour day, I had somebody come up to me and say, can I take 5 minutes to pitch you my script? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I don't know you.
But let me ask you a question. But I want to ask you, like, what if they pitch you your script, what are they expecting you to do with that?
Well, because they know I produce.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're thinking, like, if you're looking for something or whatever.
But you produce, but you're a busy dude. I don't see like you producing 20 movies this year.
No, well, of course, but the other part of it too is that, you know,
it's not the point. The point is that, like, come on, 14 hours. Yeah, come on.
Why not come up to me and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and you know, thank you so much for today. Thank you for putting this on. I learned so much, you know. Maybe somewhere down the road, you know, or even like ask me, like, what are you working on right now? Like, outside of doing this, like, you know, you get my point.
It's approach. It's approach.
And it was funny. I will end this story by saying that the following year I sat down with this writer director again, and we had a drink, and I reminded him I told him I was putting this into the book, and wasn't going to name it and everything. But I leaned over and I was telling him the first part of the story, and he just paused, and then he just leaned over to me and he went, too harsh. It was just awesome.
The timing
was unbelievable. And I went
too harsh.
And I actually said, honestly, I don't think so. He goes, me neither, because I didn't lose any sleep.
It almost sounds like it's Don Rickles. I mean, that delivery. Too harsh. Too harsh. Have I gone too far? Oh, I miss Rickles.
Now you're dating yourself.
I know I miss Rickles though, man.
No, he was unbelievable.
I miss Rickles. All right, so how do you identify the crowd that you're trying to reach in general?
Great question. And this is the problem that a lot of people, this is one of the biggest mistakes people make. And, you know, I started earlier, we were talking about the difference between crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. And I said that there is good news. And the good news is, because this is going to play into this, because if you're looking to crowd fund something, we're going to talk, everything we're about to talk about is going to play into this as well. First of all, in the book, there are 2 chapters on crowdfunding, and I'll get to the reason why those are in there. And then there are 3 case studies that involve at least partially the funds being raised through crowdfunding. Now, why are they in there, and why would it in a crowdsourcing book when I'm saying they're not the same? There has never been a successful crowdfunding campaign in the history of crowdfunding that did not involve an element of crowdsourcing.
Right.
That is the truth. Okay. The reason why most crowdfunding campaigns fail, in fact, I would say probably 9 out of 10, that the primary reason why they fail is because the people behind the campaign did not crowdsource first. They just put the damn thing up, said, if you build it, they will come. And,
doesn't work that way?
Doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't.
Does it?
No, just Field of Dreams, but not in.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Why would they lie?
Yeah, that's why. But that's why there was no sequel, because it only works once.
Honestly, I would kill to see a sequel to Field of Dreams. Like, where do you go from there?
Probably it's the best time to go pitch it, because the studios have run out of the bankrupt on ideas.
That's true. Field of Dreams 2 mixed with Titanic 2.
Or we could just pitch it like we could pitch it as a TV show and make it like Lost style, where every single player gets their own episode.
Oddly enough, I could see that on Netflix. Okay, all right. So identifying your crowd.
So identifying the crowd, think about the mistake you talked about. You asked me earlier, like, what are the mistakes? And I went on this long-winded thing about, social media, but there's so many different mistakes. And this is really one of the biggest ones, is that people think the audience for their film, or even the audience for their own personal brand, is everyone. And that's just not true. It's never been true. It's never been true of any film. You can name the most, the highest rated on IMDb films of all time, because that's an audience-based rating. Films that have won Oscars, you will find detractors of those films.
Oh no, just Shawshank Redemption, which is arguably, I think it's number one, or if it's not number one, it's Godfather, one of those two.
Yeah.
But anytime I feel bad about anyone saying anything negative about me, I just go and type up in Google, bad review Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
I go read these bad reviews, because there were bad reviews of Shawshank Redemption, and you're just
There's
like,
no doubt.
What the hell are these people thinking?
No, and I'm a huge Godfather and Godfather 2 fan, but I mean, you'll get people that are like, I don't like mob movies, or I like, look, it's just the way it is, right? There is.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Not everybody, there's not one film, one book, one piece of art that has ever been universally loved. And the same is true for people. So, and the same is true for every brand and for every product and for every film, especially if you look at a film like a product, which you should in a lot of ways. It's, people think like, man, I need to carpet bomb the hillside and canvas everybody. That's a huge mistake, and it's a very big waste of time, energy, resources.
But that's the studio plan, and they have the pockets to do that.
Right. I mean, and they can carpet, right, exactly, because they can carpet bomb the hillside, and let's face it, at the end of the day, the film really, really is a product that's a small piece of a small part of a bigger corporation, that is publicly traded on Wall Street. So what the hell do they care?
Right.
But for an independent film,
it didn't help Justice League.
It didn't help. Well, I would hope it would. It shouldn't help a lot of the freaking things they're releasing. But one day the public will speak with their wallets instead of bitching, or close their wallets instead of bitching. But
yes.
But
with indie films.
But I digress.
Yes.
Yes, but anyway.
I think as I always say, the riches are in the niches, and I think that's true.
I think that's true. I think that's very true. But for people who are going out making their first film, you have to understand, right? It's not about you. This is the idea by identifying your audience. Okay, if you can remove yourself for a second from the equation. And it's very, very hard for people to do, by the way. And if you can just look at, I'm saying this for people who are starting out and people who are going to try to build an audience for the first time for a film. And we could talk about personal brands in a second too, but for the film, you have to know who is the audience for this film, who is going to watch this film, or who is going to be interested in the subject matter of this film. The 3 case studies I have in the book are very specific about this from the standpoint of these producers and the people that were behind the campaigns, the crowdsourcing campaigns, understood who their audience was for this film. An example of this, there's a case study called Mile and a Half in the book. It's a documentary that did extremely well. It ended up being like the number 2 documentary after Hero Dreams of Sushi for a couple of months. It sold out the LA Film Festival to the point where they had to have two screens, which had never happened before. And that was because they crowdsourced for so long that the audience came out in droves. But what they did early on was they said, okay, here's the basis of this documentary. 6 or 7, I forget the number exactly, film cinematographers, photographers, directors of photography, cinematographers, and 1 sound engineer are going to hike the John Muir Trail, which is a 206-mile trail in the Pacific Northwest. And they're going to do it in its entirety for the purposes of not only being, a select few that get to do this every year, they get the permit to do it all the way across, but they were going to film all these different ecosystems and the beauty along this trail. They were going to be the first film crew to really, really film it. They were going to bring state-of-the-art equipment, and they were going to go out and film it and record it in a way that had never been seen before. Okay, doesn't sound like the sexiest thing, and they wanted to go out and raise like $85,000. And they were going to do a lot of it through crowdfunding. So again, I mean, that's a pretty hefty raise for something that seems like very niche and very sort of, But what they did was they said, okay, who is the audience for this film and who would support what we're trying to do? Well, we have the gearheads because we're going to bring all this latest equipment. We're gonna have the film enthusiasts that really appreciate seeing this type of film. We're going to documentary fans, but also we're going to go to the fitness enthusiasts, the hikers, the campers, the outdoors people, the outdoorsmen and women. Okay. And what they did was they started targeting all these organizations, both online and offline, to say, this is what we're looking to do. Can we get your input on this? They started building a crowd. They identified who that crowd was. Mm-hmm. And then they started engaging them in a way to give them ownership. For example, they're like, we're going to be gone for a long time. Can you guys give us the 10 best recipes that you could fit in a little travel cup so that we don't have to carry, because we're going to be carrying all this equipment, man. Like, how do we travel light? Mm-hmm. And people started saying, well, you got to do this. And the people that come up with the 10 best ideas are going to get a free DVD when this thing comes out, or they're going to get free access, or they're going to get free, a free trip to the premiere at the LA Film Festival or whatever. They made it. They gave everybody ownership. They made them a part of it. And then what ended up happening? A couple of their fans went to REI and said, hey, you got to check out what these guys are doing. And guess what happened? REI said, don't spend money on equipment. We'll give you all the equipment. All we want is just, put our name in the credits. That's all we care about, and do well and make it cool. And we'll even blog about it on our blog on the REI list. So all of a sudden they're sourcing this crowd to the point where by the time it played at the LA Film Festival, like I said, the line was around the corner. By the time it came out on iTunes, they were still communicating with the crowd, and they had delivered on every promise that they said, look, it's coming out tomorrow. Please stream it. Please tell everybody. You know how hard it is to debut at number 2 on iTunes?
Oh, it's insanely difficult.
Okay.
Insanely difficult.
But it was because they knew their audience, they knew how to engage them, and they knew how to move them. And that's what I'm saying. So there's everybody wants to put the brand of themselves out there first, okay, as opposed to the brand of their projects. And here's the way I'll explain it to the audience in a way that, to me, it makes the most sense. And I think even you'll appreciate this, Alex. Mm-hmm. I know you're a fan of this guy. But think about your favorite filmmaker. Think about your favorite director, or one of them, right? One of my favorite directors is P.T. Anderson.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. When Hard 8 came out, somebody said to me, first of all, I love independent films. I love gambling movies. I like crime movies. I like right in my wheelhouse, right? And somebody said to me, like, dude, you got to go check out this movie. It's right, it's an indie. It's got, this crime element. It's got that really heavy character-driven shit that you like. You got to go check this thing out. And I went to go see Hard 8. I didn't know P.T. Anderson from,
he was
the guy. What was the guy in Night Court? What was that, Anderson? I don't know.
Oh, God, the other Paul Anderson.
Well, whatever. It's not whatever. Any Anderson you can name.
Craig T. Oh, God. Now you got me. I got to look him up now. Damn it.
So anyway, I went to go see Hard 8, and I'm like, holy hell, not only is this movie great, but this director is unbelievable. So now I went from being a fan of the film to a fan of P.T. Anderson. And I said, okay, whatever this guy does next, which ended up being Boogie Nights, but at that point we didn't know what he was going to do next. But I was like, whatever this guy does next, I'm going to go see. And since then, of course, anything P.T. Anderson does, I'm there. So it's the same thing with you. It's the same thing with your brand. It's, if you're looking to put your projects out there, your writing out there, even the brand of your reels in a lot of ways, your acting brand, so to speak, it's got to precede sort of the brand. The work has to precede you. Okay, because then if you deliver on everything you're doing, then the people who you've engaged and moved and that you've delivered every promise to, now they're fans of you. Now all of a sudden your brand takes hold. The brand of you takes hold. And that's the thing that a lot of people kind of miss, is that, everybody wants to go out there and shout out what they're all about. But again, if you have champions talking about what you're about, that carries a lot of weight. If you're standing in the middle of the street screaming, going, look at me, I'm fantastic, nobody cares. You know what I mean? Until you prove that you're fantastic. Then you can stand out in the middle of the street and let them rip your clothes off like, I don't know.
The Beatles.
Like the Beatles, right? Okay.
By the way, it was Harry Anderson.
Harry Anderson. So I would have known P.T. Anderson from Harry Anderson.
Wow.
Now I certainly do.
Now we are extremely dated. A Night Court reference.
Well, I was trying to think of Andersons, and that was the first one. Yeah.
We're old folks, guys. Sorry. Go ahead. Continue, sir.
Well, speak for yourself.
I mean, obviously you're 18, but you watch a lot of reruns.
Well, TV Land, I come across it every once in a while.
Now, let me ask you something. What is the difference between advertising, marketing, and crowdsourcing?
Well, I mean, again, I think marketing is sort of the cousin of crowdsourcing, but advertising I won't even get into because it's that's also in the book. I go through a whole long thing of that because I've seen people that try to explain crowdsourcing as a form of advertising. It certainly isn't. Advertising is at its core, you're paying for promotion,
awareness,
and awareness. And with marketing, it is a sort of a cousin to marketing. But even with marketing, it's not. Again, marketing is more of a broadcasting kind of thing. Marketing isn't really an inclusive thing. Marketing is a one-sided thing. And I think if we're going to drive any point home here today, it's that building an audience is not, it's a two-way street, but really it should be a one-way street out for a very, very long period of time before the traffic could come back into you. And that's the really huge difference between the two. Crowdsourcing is really, really, really all about knowing who you're talking to and then shutting the hell up and listening, asking the right questions and then listening and then giving the people what they ask for. And that's how you really build that audience. Look, if you look at the one thing that when I say it's a cousin, when a film company that has money and marketing dollars knows their audience, they will, of course, do some demographic research and go out and advertise in those places. I love baseball. I'll go to a baseball stadium. If there's a baseball movie out, there'll be ads to that baseball movie everywhere. They know to advertise there. Sure, they're freaking geniuses, right?
Right.
Okay. But that's still a one-way thing. Okay. The crowdsourcing part of this is knowing your audience in a way that, again, you're engaging them and giving them the feeling of being involved to the point where that ownership becomes a sense of pride. And then when you ask them to move, they go and they do it. But you got to deliver them value. Everything comes down to value. In this book, for example, I talk a lot about your ask. The ask is really when you go to move your audience. You have to earn your ask. The last chapter I have in the book is my ask. And my ask is basically to spread the word about the book, let people know about it, leave a great Amazon review, take a photo with the book and send it in so I could post it. Because what I'm saying to you is if I've delivered on everything that I promised, and I start the book this way, I say, here's what I am going to give to you in this book. This is my goal, is to give you this information, this knowledge, so that you will be able to go out and do A, B, C, D, and E. Okay? If I deliver on this, I'm going to have an ask at the end. All right. This process of going from identifying and making those promises to being in a position to actually ask for the ask takes a long time. It's relationship building. If you think about the best friends you have and your best friendships that you've cultivated, those friendships surely took some time. You didn't just walk up to somebody and go, hey, you want to be my best friend? You know what I'm saying? Right. But that's what people do. Like, it's like going up to somebody going, hey, you want to give me money for my project? Hey, I'm crowdfunding today. Yeah, you and everybody else. You know what I mean? Hey, I got a movie. Yeah, you and everybody else.
How many daily hits do you get or requests on your social media for crowdfunding campaigns to promote their crowdfunding campaign?
Crowdfunding campaigns, I probably get upwards of 25 a week. I would say from people I don't know,
right?
And requests to read scripts, look at reels, you name it, anything having to do with material, probably another 40 to 50 a week. So you're talking about, 60, 70, 80 people a week who I don't know, who have never had any prior engagement with me whatsoever, that only know that I have this big network or, have seen me talk somewhere or whatever. That feel compelled to just that I'm going to go, yeah, of course, you. Out of the 25 people that sent the crowdfunding campaign this week to me and said, give me money or promote it, I'm going to promote you. You're the lucky winner. You know what I mean?
I give 3 of these cards out a week.
Exactly, right. I go home with all 3 every week.
Too harsh?
I won't even
click
on it. Harsh? Is that too harsh?
Is that too harsh?
I will tell you this, okay? It's God. I'm going to sound like such a dick, but I'm not. I'm really not. I hope everybody realizes that.
Please, honesty.
From a place of pure honesty, and I hope you realize that that's not the case. But there has never been a time. Sometimes I will get curious, and it's a morbid curiosity in a way.
Sure.
I will get the ones that people will say, I have 3 days left. You have to help me hit my goal. And I actually have one of these in the book, and I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was close, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody said to me, I got like 3 days left, or I have 12 hours left. Like, what can you do to help me push this thing? And I clicked the link to see the project and what the goal was and where they were at. Sure. And it was a 75,000 goal that had like $388 in. And I was like, yeah, sure. Let me cut you a check for 74 and change. No worries. Let me get that right out to you.
I get that, but I get the executive producer credit though, don't I?
Yeah, sure. Let me write that. But it really is. It's true. There has never been one time, and this is the God's honest truth. There has never been one time where I have clicked through where the goal at that point, like if somebody says I only have a few days left, where the goal has been anywhere over like 20 to 25%. And let me take it in a positive direction too. A lot of people just don't know. I mean, it's not, like we're sitting here saying people are late, and there are people that are inherently lazy and people who do not want to put the work in. And, a lot of people who quit this business because they don't have the patience for relationship building and for cultivating those relationships and everything like that. But there are genuinely some people that, maybe they don't know where to go for the research, or they don't know what to do. And I wrote an article for Medium like 4 years ago, because it was, it was exactly what we're talking about. And it was called, 5 mistakes you're making on, or I forget the exact name. It was something like 5 mistakes you're making on Twitter as it relates to your crowdfunding campaign or something like that. And the thing got like 8,000 reads. It was crazy. It still gets a ton of reads. And if you want to check it out, you just go to Medium, and it's RB Walks Into a Bar, which is my Twitter handle and my Instagram handle. And you'll see the article there. It's still up there. But when people send me, and this you still try to be generous to people. And what will happen is when people do send me those crowdfunding campaigns, as long as they're not coming across as complete assholes, which some of them do, okay, if they're coming across and they're like, hey, you think you could help me or whatever, and it's like through a Twitter DM or it's through social media, what I'll normally do is I'll say, no, I can't help you. I don't know you. We haven't built a relationship, and you're probably going about this the wrong way. Here's, give this article a read, and I'll actually send them a link to the article. But you laugh, but here's the thing.
Right, you're doing them a favor, but they're like, you know what? Fuck this guy.
No, that's what I was going to say. This is the surprising part, and this is what I'm saying. This is why not all people are bad. Sometimes I'll get radio silence, but I will tell you, more often than not, people will write back and say, thank you. They'll say, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that, because they don't know. They just,
it's not taught. It's not taught anywhere.
It's not taught. And here's the other part of it. They go to Indiegogo or they go to Kickstarter and they see all these things up there, or they read the latest article about the latest success of the latest movie that played at Sundance, that crowdfunded everything. And they think, oh, I could do that too. I know 10 people that'll give money to this thing, and I'm sure I can drum up another 50 that will do it. And it just doesn't work that way. It's, the people that have these hugely successful crowdfunding campaigns. And this was actually a story. I was on stage with a director at the Directors Guild. We were giving a talk at the Directors Guild a couple of weeks ago, and he told this great story about how, they raised, I forget what the number was, but it was in the tens of thousands, high tens. I think it was like 80 or something like that. And he said, man, he goes, what I did, he goes, I went to, like everybody else, that, they talk about the Friends and Family Week. He goes, I went to the Friends and Family, and I asked him straight out, like, what are you thinking about putting towards the project? And not because I'm asking you because I think you're going to be cheap or you're going to be overly generous or anything like that. I just want to have an idea of what I'm going to be dealing with afterward. And what he said was, okay, I know that I have this number coming in. I'm not going to launch this thing for another 6 months because I still need about 80% more. So I'm going to spend 6 months building my relationships, telling people what I'm doing, shooting small clips of this, showing people what I'm looking to do, explaining it, asking people to get involved, giving away spots on set, like who wants to be on set to come see it. I'm going to take some students that are interested. If you know anybody, things that made it look like, hey, I'm a generous guy, which she is. And, I want to give back, which she does, but I also need your help. And he blew by his total because he spent the 6 months doing that. People don't want to spend those 6 months.
Can you imagine? But the thing that they only see is like that film got into Sundance and he crowdfunded it. They don't see all the work that goes behind the scenes. And that's a lot of dedication. I got to give it to him. That's a lot of dedication for one project.
But think about the flip side, Alex. I mean, right? What's the flip side? The flip side is that you spend, 2 months, putting the thing, 45 days, let's say 40 days running a campaign, miserable because every day you're waking up going like, there's no money's coming in, no money's coming in. Then you spend the next 2 to 3 months depressed or angry because it didn't work. Right. As opposed to spending, and by the way, you spend those 2 to 3 months being depressed and angry that it didn't work, and you walk away with less than what you came in with because you don't have the money, you don't have the relationships, and you've lost all that time. As opposed to spending those 6 months building these unbelievable relationships, then living on your promises, and bam. The second crowdfunding campaign is always easier than the first because of this one fact, everything that we just talked about.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
If you have a successful first campaign and you deliver on all your promises, when you go back that second time, people are going to be like, I don't give a shit what movie you're making. I'm in with you. And that's the P.T. Anderson thing I was talking about. If P.T. Anderson had crowdfunded back in the day, if it was around, Hard 8, and he said, look, now I'm doing this Boogie Nights thing, and next I would have been like, I'm all in. Are you kidding me? How could I help? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm such a fan of you, and I'm so jazzed about what you're doing, and you got some serious chops. I want to be a part of that. Right. So that's the thing, is that, this relationship building and knowing your audience and how you engage them and how you give them that ownership matters so much. And that's why, it's where we came in. Crowdsourcing to me right now is the most important topic for anyone looking to control their own content, to build their brand, to build the brand of the films. It just is. It just is. It gives you a competitive advantage that other people don't have. Now,
can you talk a little bit about the actual social media platforms? Which ones are the best for filmmakers or not? Obviously, besides Stage 32.
Well, if you're not on Stage 32, you just, you're
I mean, seriously, come on, guys. Get on Stage 32. Yeah. It's free. It's free, guys. Come on.
Yeah, pick your insulting word for that one. No, I'm only kidding. I'm kind of kidding.
Too harsh? Too harsh?
Too harsh? You absolutely should be on stage32.com. And if you're not familiar with it, please put it into a browser and please look at it. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But for me, look, everybody is different. Okay. I was never a Facebook guy. And it's one of the reasons why I started Stage 32. I just didn't see any way to get traction on Facebook for my creative end. The connections that I knew that were on Facebook that were in the industry, they were still sharing pictures of their dogs and their salads and their babies and not really talking about the business. So that really had no appeal to me. And to me, my time is my most valuable commodity. And if I'm going to spend time on social media and networking, which I do every day and which I treat like a job, and you should too, and that's another thing that people make a mistake on, I want to be on networks that and platforms that get me the most bang for my buck for my time and give me the most access and the ability to do all the things that we talked about earlier, identify and engage in a sort of a concise and quick manner, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. To me, for me personally, I'm on Twitter and I've been on there for a while. And I like the fact that on Twitter, it's very, very easy to share content. It's very, very easy to let people know that you're appreciative of the content that you're sharing, which, by the way, is giving them value. And we can talk about that for a second. I'm also on Instagram, and the reason I like Instagram is because I think it's very easy with the hashtags on Instagram to be able to look at the various crafts and the various aspects of the business and see who's posting on those things and connect with them. I think it's very easy to get to people. So those are the two that I really like. But look, my suggestion would be, to find the ones that work for you, just because I don't like Facebook and because I think that they have major league problems.
Yes, definitely now.
Excuse me.
They're just, and I'll go on a side note on Facebook. I personally don't like Facebook. I hate Facebook, but yet it's my largest social media platform. And I do get a tremendous amount of attention and traffic, and I connect with a lot of people on Facebook. But their business model is so just pisses me off. I've got over 120,000 or something, like close to 120,000 followers on my Facebook page. I could barely get to any of them without having to pay. And it pisses me off.
That's it. I mean, it's the same thing with the Stage 32. It's a joke. And I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to say who said this fallout was coming, but his initials are RB.
Right. Right.
No, I mean, seriously, it's just a joke.
It's back to MySpace. Back to MySpace.
It is. And it's why I'm not, but again, I mean, it's also, the content is being shared. One of the things when we were starting Stage 32 and I told you I made that list of 100 people, one of the things I said to them is, before I even told them what I was doing, I said, I actually polled them and I said, what platforms are you on? And of course, a lot of people at that time were saying Facebook. And I said to them, okay, be honest with me. For as long as you've been on Facebook, and keep in mind, these are all industry executives and, working creatives. And I said, what have you gotten any jobs or anything that has given you traction towards anything progressive for your career or for Facebook? And to a man and a woman, they said no. And that's when I knew that I needed to move forward with this thing and have sort of concentrated networking. And again, even though Twitter and Instagram are broad-based social media sites, you can tailor it to become a niche social media site, which I do. The people I follow, the hashtags that I get involved in, all of it's all film and or business entrepreneurial related. And that's it. I don't worry about everything else. I'm not on the hashtag. I'm not on Trump sucks hashtag. And I'm not on, I'm right. Doing the work. I'm doing the film stuff. You know what I mean? And that's what matters. So that's the other reason why I like those two platforms. But again, no matter what platform you're on, at the end of the day, it's really, really, really about what is the value that you bring. What, part of my brand, and I know it's part of yours, Alex, is that part of my brand is to motivate and to inspire and to educate and to keep people that are serious about doing what they're doing in the game, to give them the support. I think as creatives, we're nothing without support. And I preach that a lot. So, a lot of what I post on social media is educational. It's inspirational. It's aspirational. I try to keep, to those themes and to that thought, those thoughts, because I think that's what I'm about. You know what I mean? And I think that people, again, you need to know what your brand is. I told this story again at FilmCon this week, and it's just it's a state of the right now story, and I'll tell it really quick. But I mean, I got asked by a friend of mine. First, let me say, I mean, again, not to lose the train of thought, the brand matters, and what you put out there matters, and how you put things out there matters. Mm-hmm. And this is a story about how it matters. In this day and age, a friend of mine was casting a film and said to me, look, we have these two actresses that we love. They both have incredibly different takes on the part, but they're both brilliant. Mm-hmm. The room is split. We don't know what to do. We've had them both in 3 times. Would you come down? And I said, yeah, I'll come down. I said, I'm not going to be the guy. I'll try to help. I said, I don't want to be the one that, splits the room up. But I said, I'll come down. So I came down, and sure enough, they both were just brilliant. Mm-hmm. And for the next half hour, I watched the connections to this film just struggle and just, who like this. And finally, one of the casting directors said, you know what? Let's see what their online presence is like. Let's see what their online personas are like. And they went on to their Twitter accounts. And one of the actresses was posting a lot about the craft and helping people, which is really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And posting some unbelievably great content having to do with acting in the business and great videos and stuff like that. The other person, the other actress had, almost every single post was political.
Selfies. Oh, really?
No, political. And, getting into Twitter flame wars with people about politics. And this casting director turned around and said, look,
done.
If this, she seems very nice, but she may be very difficult to work with. And this one seems like a saint. I think we should give it to her. And everybody in the room went, done. So this girl lost out on a job, for better or for worse, or for right or for wrong, because of what her online brand was. Her brand wasn't a creative. Her brand was this firebrand. Now, look, you want to be a political activist? Go be an activist. We all have very strong opinions on what's going on in the world right now. I think we all do. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't need to rage about them online. I can go to happy hour or to a dinner or talk to my, and sit down with people and talk about it. You know what I mean? I don't need to be raging to, Billy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and getting into a flame war with them, about what's happening, with Trump or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, it's not smart. It's certainly not worth my time. If I want to be an activist about this, and I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't know about, that's the point. I go and I do it on my time when I feel like, it's the right time. But I don't need to be spending 8 hours a day doing it on social media. I need to be on, if I have 8 hours a day and I'm going to be on social media, you bet your ass that I'm going to be going out there making as many connections as I can and helping as many people as I can and building those relationships, because that's really what matters at the end of the day.
Now, can you said this earlier today that you treat social media like a job. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think it's something very important that people should hear.
Absolutely. I spend at least an hour a day on networking and on relationship building. And that means that I'm usually, a big majority of that is usually on stage 32, connecting with people, looking at, who's joined recently, who's posting in the lounge, which is our version of the forums, like who's really contributing. A lot of people don't understand. We have Oscar winners, Emmy winners, Tony Award winners, influencers. We have people that are on the site are amazing. They don't all, they're not all out there every minute of every day. And some of them, kind of stay behind the scenes a little bit, but they're not hard to find if you put the work in. And it's not hard to put the work in. I put at least a couple of posts on Twitter every day, and it's usually sharing content. I make sure to engage and respond to people who write to me, and keep, make them understand that if they're coming from a place of selflessness, that it's appreciated and that I am going to, engage with them. Same thing on Instagram. But I try to spend at least an hour every single day. Now, is it realistic with me running Stage 32 and writing and producing and all this other crap? Sometimes no, but you know what? I'll make it up on a weekend. I'll spend, the reality of the situation is that I could be in line at Starbucks and, be 10 deep and it's going to take me 20 minutes to get to the front. I could be doing 20 minutes of networking as opposed to watching YouTube videos,
right.
Cat videos. You know what I mean?
But those cat videos with the cucumbers are funny though.
Yeah, we see. I don't know, man. I'm a dog person.
No, I'm a dog person too. That's why I like when the cats get scared, because I'm a dog person.
I heard cats and cucumbers, and I had 7,000 jokes, and none of them were appropriate. None of them are appropriate.
Anybody who has 2 seconds, just type in cat and cucumber in YouTube, and you'll find out what I'm talking about. But anyway, you're absolutely right. Don't do that.
Hashtag not me.
But you're right. You're right. You could be doing work while waiting in line at the bank or at Starbucks or wherever you are.
Well, and it's just, people make excuses all the time. I'm too busy. I'm too this. I'm too that. Look, there are plenty of times where I get up. I mean, you and I were exchanging emails this morning, I think at 5:45 in the morning. I mean, it's just the truth. I mean, there are days where, sure, I'd love to lay in bed, until 7 or whatever, but it's like, there's a million other things that need to get done. And I'm not saying that you should work to the point of exhaustion. What I'm saying to you is that if it matters that, sacrifices have to be made. I mean, the thing that changed my entire screenwriting path, for example, was when I sat and said, okay, for the next 6 months, I had written a few good scripts I felt were pretty good anyway. Let me rephrase that. 3 scripts that I felt were ready to be seen and be out in the marketplace and be out in front of people that could make a difference and, the gatekeepers and all that. And I said, I'm going to spend the next 6 months, I'm going to cut down on the amount of nights I'm out going to dinner, the amount of nights I'm out, going to happy hour, going to, drink with the guys or whatever, the amount of, this Starbucks I'm going to get and whatever. And I'm going to make, a little bit of a war chest for myself. I'm going to invest in myself. And that means I'm going to really put in the time, with the relationship building and the networking and making those connections. And I really did for 6 months. And, I sacrificed a little sleep here and there and, got up a little early, went to bed a little late and whatever. And it made all the difference in the world. I ended up landing my manager, ended up getting the option of the film that's at Covert that you referenced earlier. I mean, all these things happened during that time period, but it was a absolute commitment to putting in that time. So when I hear people say, oh man, who has the time to build relationships? I just sit there and I go, I'm not going to make it.
You're not going to, but you watch 3 hours of Netflix a night.
Well, and that's the other thing too. It's like, people.
I mean, yeah, you watch 3 hours of Netflix a night. You're chilling out. There's always time. Always time.
And here's the thing. You're so right, man. And here's the thing. We talked about earlier about your brand on social media and your brand and your brand and your brand. Just understand something. You can't hide you're on social media. So what'll end up happening is I'll get people that will write me, like we'll do a podcast like this and or I'll do like an on stage with RB on Stage 32, and people will write me privately and they'll be like, I heard you talk about like, the sacrifices, and I heard you saying that you got to do this. And man, I got to tell you, it's just so difficult because I have this, that, and the other thing, this. And the first thing that I will do when I hear people bitch and moan like that is I will go to Twitter or Instagram, usually Twitter, and because Twitter is more of the microblogging kind of thing. And I will go look at that account, and more often than not, it'll be somebody being like, just took in 10 episodes of House of Cards. It's like,
what a great season of Stranger Things.
Season 6 sucked. Season 5 was much better. It sucked. But I could jump to season 8 now, whatever. Like, it's like, and you sit there and go, oh, really?
No time.
Oh,
I got no time.
Yeah, you don't have time, huh? Okay. All right.
So, RB, tell us where we can find this book.
You could find it on Amazon. Anywhere where Amazon delivers books. I think if you're listening to this in the UK, I think they have their own special link. But if you're in a place where you can't get it delivered through Amazon, you could go to Focal Press. They have the book as well, and they deliver anywhere in the world.
And I'll put the links in the show notes.
Yeah, but it's definitely obviously available on Amazon for Kindle and in paperback, and as a textbook, because as these things go, and I'm very pleased about this. Apparently, there's quite a few schools interested in teaching it. The one thing that I will say about this book, and Focal, they kind of come from an academic angle, and my agreement with them was that I did not want this to be sort of a stuffy book. So, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast and the banter I have with Alex, that's exactly what you're going to get in the book. Yes. I told them, I said, listen, you're going to get my voice. There's not going to be any end of chapter homework assignments and checklists and all this happy horse shit. I said, it's going to be me talking and making it fun, and I do think it's a very, very fun book. And
well, I mean, your first chapter alone is called "Allow Myself to Introduce Myself," so that pretty much tells you. It tells you the attitude of the book.
Right. The tone is set early on. Yeah. So much to my editor's horror, when I handed it in at first, and then they were like, "Oh wait, this is really, really freaking funny, and it should do well," and it has. So so I'm pleased with that. But that's what you'll get. You'll get, it's a very, very fun read, and just, a ton of information. So, and all the case studies as well, which I was very, very grateful. And it really was one of the reasons why it took so long to write the book. Part of it was being tied up with other projects and everything like that. But part of it also was I had so many great people that contributed. And, when you have as many people as, added their 2 cents to this book and, helped out with case studies and everything like that, it takes a lot of time to collect all that information and get it all in. And so that's one of the reasons it took so long, but I think it was well worth it because I think the case studies alone are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, not only are you an author, not only are you the CEO of running Stage 32 and a screenwriter and all sorts of other things you do, you actually did a little bit of acting this year for the first time in a long time. Is that true?
Why, yes, it is, Alex.
So RB, so the story is, guys, that RB is actually in On the Corner of Ego and Desire. He plays a pivotal character in the movie that I just shot at Sundance, and I remember I texted you and I said, well, I told you a few months earlier that I was going to do it. And you looked at me like you're fucking nuts.
No, I didn't. That's not fair. Because you
always look at me like I'm fucking nuts.
That's true. Yeah,
that's true.
But I always, again, you talk about crowdsourcing and you talk about relationship building. From the minute I met you, I'm like, this is a kindred spirit, which is really interesting because, again, you don't have to have everything in common with somebody either. Right. Alex doesn't drink. I've been known to, maybe once every few months have a cocktail.
I'm vegan.
He's vegan, and
he's not.
I hunt for my own food. Alex, if I asked him to go to a baseball game, he would be like, "Is that the big orange ball?"
Okay, no. First of all, that's not true. You don't know. I've played baseball, played football, played basketball. I know the three.
It's true. You actually did tell me that.
I have played. So yes, I don't do it often now, but
Yeah, we bonded over not only a love for film, but that I think we're kindred spirits in that our missions are very, very much the same, and that we do like to give, and we do like the everything that surrounds what we do on a day-to-day basis is very, very, very similar. It's almost exactly the same. So I consider you a brother. So when you said that to me, I was like, of course you're going to do. And then the other thing too is
you actually did say that.
Yeah, your work ethic is insane. I mean, and that, which I also love, and he's like, I just pumped out like 40 podcasts. I got like 20 blogs going up, and I'm going to shoot a movie at Sundance. I'm like, yeah, of course you are. And why wouldn't you? Why not shoot two?
Exactly. Well, I was tempted, but there was only 4 days. But so what I texted him I think it was like a week or so before. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. And I said, "Hey, I wrote this part for you. Will you be in it?" And he's like, "Of course I'll be in it. Let me know what you need me to do." Mm-hmm. And he shows up to the scene, which we won't break down too much because I don't want to ruin the scene. But he shows up to the scene. It's late. There might be a couple of drinks in you.
Well, it was a party. It was right. A party. It's at a party.
It's at a party, and then you just you're like, so what am I doing here? Like literally had to tell you that like we broke down the whole thing because there was no script. It was based on a scriptment. So we kind of worked the scene out. I mean, we had the scene structured there, but it was all just kind of done in the moment.
Yeah.
While we're batting off drunks trying to get out into the balcony.
Right. Yeah. It was an interesting. Yeah. So I'll tell you my version.
Yeah, tell me from your. I want to hear from your side of the fence.
My side of the fence.
Because I'm on my side of the fence. I'm literally in the party, holding a light up at the ceiling, bouncing it at you while I'm going action.
Action, exactly right. So yes, it is true that Alex asked me. Actually, you asked me a while ago, but then you texted me and said, "So we're definitely doing this." And I'm like, "Okay, awesome."
Yes.
Yeah. I said, "Yeah, whenever you need me, and whenever I'm going to be up there for like 7 days or however many days I'm going to be up there." And every day, you're available at this time. I'm like, no, and then got to do it this night. I can't do it tonight. And, on both ends. And then finally, I'm like, dude, he's like, Alex says, I'm leaving tomorrow. He goes like, we got to do it tonight. And I'm like, well, what time tonight? And he's like, well, we'll figure it out. I'm like, what do you mean we'll figure it out? I mean, because if you're at Sundance, if you know anything about it, there is 6 million events going on at once. Sure. And you're being pushed and pulled to everything. It's like, you got to be here, you got to be there. Like you show face for 5 seconds here, 5 seconds, you're just running around the freaking town. Not that I'm complaining. I'm just saying that's just a fact. But this party that Alex is going to film at does go on every year, and it's one of the well-known parties, and it's in like a double condo kind of thing, and it's it's probably a couple hundred people there, you'd say.
Oh God, it was packed this year.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
At least a couple hundred people there.
At least.
And Alex goes, "We're going to film at the freaking party." I'm like, "How the hell is he going to film at the party?" Now, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe before the party starts, and we'll have a couple of people that'll act as like extras, whatever. No. As the night's going on, I'm getting the text saying, I'm like, well, now? No, not yet. So
you showed up before the party. Don't forget, you showed up before the party just to kind of say hi.
Oh, I did. That's right.
You came by, you're like, okay, so what's going on? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be later tonight. We're shooting other stuff right now. And you're like,
fantastic. Great.
Okay, I'll see you around 12:30.
And I said to Alex, I said, okay, that, the sort of meetings and the parties and everything started at like noon. So I can't promise you that I'm going to be completely coherent at this point. And,
I was actually counting on it, sir.
I got not to be, right. So, a couple more cocktails. And now I walk in and I just want to emphasize that Alex stated earlier, and I wanted, you guys heard it. If you want to rewind it, you'll hear him say it again, that he wrote a part for me.
Yeah, I did.
And I walked in and I said, okay, so where's the script? And he goes, oh, no, there's no script. Stand over there.
That's what I wrote it. There was a scriptment, but I didn't give you the scriptment. I could just explain it to you.
He goes, stand over. A scriptment. He goes, stand over there. And I'm like, stand over here. He goes, and I go, and he's like, okay. And all of a sudden they're setting up lights and I meet the other actors and all this stuff. And they're like, hey, it's so great to be working with you. I'm like, that's fantastic. I go, do any of you know what the hell this movie's about or what's going on? I go, yeah. I go, Alex told me like, like months ago what the idea was, but so the idea was right. I remember the idea. So I got that. And then they're like, oh, okay. So, so then finally I pull Alex this. He's like, okay, I think we're getting set up. I think we're going to just be a couple minutes away from shooting. And I'm like, all right.
Alex,
I go, so you seriously, like, just,
2 minutes. I just need 2 minutes.
Yeah, like, give me a nugget. Give me like word association. Anything.
Sounds like.
Anything, whatever you want to do. I'm like, even Brando was able to, I'm not comparing myself to Brando, but at least Brando, I mean, he could pin the lines to Jimmy Cahn's chest in The Godfather. I'm like, do something. Hold up a cue. Hold something. What do you need me to do?
I'm very Cassavetes that way.
You are very Cassavetes. But then, it was explained to me and I totally got it. And it was awesome. And then it was hilarious because we filmed part of the scene inside the room. And then Alex says, okay, now we got to take it outside. And it was about 6 degrees out. And
don't exaggerate. It was like 8. It was like 8.
Maybe.
It was 8.
Maybe like 8 degrees. And, of course, none of us were wearing jackets or anything. And he goes, oh, you're just going to be outside for like 2 minutes. And we were outside for about 30.
30? Well, you were warm because you had your drink in your hand. You were good.
I did have my drink in my hand. And it was truly, truly an awesome experience. Basically, everybody who's somebody in Hollywood has seen this movie. Alex, now let me see it until we have our date together. I have to go somewhere with him to watch it with him, even though everybody else
watch it anyway.
I haven't seen it. I have not seen it.
And not everybody in Hollywood has seen this. Please, just don't exaggerate. Just a few Academy Award winners, but that's it. Just a few Academy
Award winners, right? Who emailed me and they're like, "Dude, congratulations on the movie. You're great in it." I'm like, "How the frick did you see it?
That was the
what
best.
Is going on?" I'm like, what is happening?
RB actually, when I was at FilmCon, and he like first words out of his mouth when he sees me at FilmCon, he's like, "I've got a bone to pick with you. How the hell did this guy see it before I did?" I'm like, "Oh,
we gotta talk, bro. We gotta talk."
Damn it! I can't believe he told you.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. But no, it was an amazing experience, and I gotta say, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, kudos. I mean, it's amazing what you pulled off and how you did it, and also I gotta say, the actors that I got to work with, it's interesting for me because as you know, I started as an actor in theater. I haven't done a lot of acting in a long time. And, it's interesting how a lot of it comes back to you from the standpoint of being in front of other actors. And you had, and just that listening and just, that thing where you just kind of relax because acting is reacting kind of thing. And that's all I kept saying to myself is just, react to whatever is being thrown at you. And these 3 actors that you put me in the scene with were just so good and so giving. Mm-hmm. And it just reminded me of, the best people I worked with in theater back in the day, back in New York, that the best ones were always the ones that gave so much. And these 3 actors were just amazing, and you were great, and just all of it. It was just it was an awesome experience. And it was such a wonderful, when you came in, because there were still bets out. They were like, RB's not going to come. I'm like, RB's coming. RB's coming. That's really. That's what. See, they don't know my brand. There is no way I would have.
And I go, RB's gonna be here. I promise you, he would never do that to me. He's gonna be here. I promise you. And they're like, I don't know. It's getting late. So on 12:30 already. I'm like, don't worry, RB will be here. I promise. And then you show up, and exactly what I expected you to have. You had the exact amount of alcohol in you that I wanted. So you were you were being very Daniel Day because you were literally method, because you were the producer at the party at the time that we were filming was pretty much the time they would have found you at the party, which was like 12:31. And we're shooting this scene and I was like, this is perfect. So RB's just, you have enough alcohol in you. So you're not too subconscious about your performance. So you're just rolling with it. And it just kind of flowed. And the one thing I loved that you did was I wanted you to be a bigger dick in the scene. And you couldn't be. You're like, Alex, I can't.
It was hard, yeah.
I can't. Because I actually busted out some lines for you on my paper that I wrote for you. And I said, read this. And you're like, I can't do that. Like, I can't say this. So because your unwillingness to be a dick, the scene works so much better. because on top of it, it was authentic to who you were as a human being. And because of that came straight off onto the screen, and the other actors felt it as well. So the whole scene, I cried when I edited that scene for the first. I called you when I was editing it. I'm like, I'm bawling on the scene because I've been in that scene too many times in my life to count. So it was just a wonderfully emotional scene. It's a great scene, and you killed it. And you killed it. It was really, really wonderful to watch you go through all that. I know you had a ball because you're some outtakes that you had were the stuff that was,
I can't wait to see that.
the stuff that was coming out of her mouth was insane.
Oh man, and that's the thing too. It's so funny. It's interesting that you brought up the part about, because you did say that to me from the beginning. You were like, you're going to be, you got to be a dick, and you got to be, you're the producer, and they're coming to you, and it was, what was interesting was, again, that's that instinct that I was talking about. That it was so bizarre to me, almost like out of body in a weird way, that it came back in that way, and like almost like flashbacks to being doing stage plays and stuff. Was that this, like, it's not that I couldn't play that, but because what they were giving me, I didn't feel like I wanted to do that. Sure. And that was so interesting to me in the aftermath. And but it's really, really cool. I mean, I just, like I said, and that just speaks to how awesome those actors were. But it was, just going back a notch. The funny side to this whole entire thing that you were talking about, them saying, I'm not going to show up, Where I was prior to coming there was I was at the Covert Media Party for Ophelia, which played at Sundance. And again, Covert is the company that bought my screenplay, that's in development on my screenplay, with yada, yada. And so I'm at this party having a really good time. And I know a lot of people there. And I'm like, I got to go. And they're like, what do you mean you got to go? Because this party's going to like 2 a.m. And I'm like, no, I got to go. And they're like, where do you got to go? I'm like, I got to go act in a movie. And they're like, what do you mean you're acting?
That's right.
What the hell are you talking? Like every single person I said it to, because every single person that was like, where you going? I'm like, I got to go do a scene for a movie. They're like, you going to watch a movie? Like, what, are you catching a midnight screening? I'm like, no, I have to go act in a movie. And they're like, what do you mean you're acting? It was hysterical, man.
It was, because actually your director was at that party.
Yes.
And your director, when I met him at FilmCon, he's like, wait a minute, you're the movie he went to go do? Because he kept telling everybody he was going to go and do a movie. I thought he was just BSing. It's like, no, he's really no. But that was the funny part about the whole thing, is like, anytime I mentioned it to anybody, I'm like, oh, I'm shooting a movie. No one understood what I was talking about, because it's just something that's never been done, and you really don't do.
No.
You really don't shoot a full feature film at Sundance. It's just not something that's done or ever has been done. So when you say you're doing it, you sound like a crazy person. So I'm sure the looks that you were getting, you're like, I'm sorry, what, you're shooting a movie? What?
Oh, it was hilarious. You're filming a scene. What? No. And I mean, and just the way you guys went about it, like I said, and the efficiency, again, and that's the other part of it too. And, we've gone through this whole podcast, talking about the things you need to do and not making excuses and everything like that. Like,
right.
What you did up there, and even what you did with This Is Meg, and it's so impressive, and it's leading by example in a lot of ways. I mean, you're practicing what you preach, which is no excuses, and you can go do it, and you don't necessarily need to raise a ridiculous amount of money, and you don't there's ways around everything, and there's ways to tackle it, and it's just the people that really, really want to do it, and the creatives that really, really want to do it, find a way. And that was the thing that was so impressive about that. That's why I did get to see the trailer.
Yes.
And when you sent me the trailer, I was blessed with the,
I should have held back
with the viewing of the trailer. I felt like I was going to be able to watch it.
When I sent you the trailer, your reaction was priceless.
Yeah, I was like, I was first of all, I was stunned. I'm like, whoa, I'm being graced with the trailer. But when I watched it, I was like, because there's scenes on the shuttle, and there's scenes in the street, and and I sat there and I just said to myself, like, this is a perfect example of, where there's a will, there's a way, and where, if you really, really want to go do it, you're gonna find a way to do it. And I was reading an article recently. It was funny. I forget which Hitchcock movie it was, but they were talking about, one of the stars was talking about him stealing shots on the New York street. And, that
Hitchcock?
Yeah, they were talking about the fact that they just didn't even want to wait for the goddamn permits or something like that, or the cops, moved them from one street to the next or whatever. And Hitchcock was like, screw it. Like, you know what I mean? When we're just going to do it. And the point of the matter, what they were trying to get across was Hitchcock's mentality in that moment was art above all, and our mission above all. And I think that's what everybody has to embrace. I'm not saying go out there and break the law, although you might
have fractured.
But I'm saying
you might have fractured.
It's
in your early days, you might have fractured a few.
Less than maybe my brand indicates, but but you get my point. I mean, it's just that where there's a will, there's a way, and that was what was so impressive. It was so impressive what you did. I mean, hopefully I'll get to see it before it's at some major festival or something like that. Or if I don't get to see it until it's at a major festival, maybe I'll get an invite, or maybe somebody will record a couple of scenes on their iPhone and show.
I don't know if I said it or you said it, but I think when you saw the trailer, you're like, wow, it looks like a real movie.
No, I did not say that.
I think I said it.
I did not say that. I knew it would look like a real movie. I did not say that.
But thank you
I will not be.
My brand will not be tarnished, sir, on your podcast.
That's right. I will not have that comment hung on me. I can see that on the poster. Wow, it looks like a real movie.
RB Botto, stage 32. That is so going on the poster now.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right, so a few last questions because as I expected, this interview was going to go long, and we could probably keep talking for a few hours. Our record, by the way, I think is like 2 hours and 40 minutes on that. Oh, I forgot that the Oscar special we did. So this is number 6.
Oh my God, that's right. There's another one. Wow, people got to really. I'm lapping the field right now.
Okay, so. What advice would you give a filmmaker or screenwriter wanting to break into the business today in today's world?
First and foremost, control as much as you can control. I think that people are so anxious to give stuff away these days. Like, for example, writers, we were just having this conversation yesterday with a development executive at a very, very big production company that I was having lunch with, who, she said, writers and filmmakers are so anxious to get representation and to, just kind of give away everything. And they think that by doing it, by relinquishing that control, things are going to move forward. But at the end of the day, really, you are your own best advocate and you always will be. To me, in this day and age, controlling, we're living in such a content rich and sort of a renaissance, really, of content creation. I think that if you can control as much as you can control for as long as you can control it, you're going to win more days than you lose. And the other part about breaking in is to just realize, again, not to beat a dead horse, but it's the truth, that the way you get a competitive advantage in this business is treating that relationship building, which you could start doing today, as a job, and recognizing the fact that this is a marathon and not a sprint. It is a if you can embrace that philosophy, by the way.
Yep.
You can embrace that philosophy that this is a long game. Like when people say I'm going to give myself 2 years, like I hear this from actors, I hear this from writers, I hear this from filmmakers. Like I moved out to LA, I'm going to give myself 2 years. You're done. You're done because you're setting a ticking clock on yourself, which is never a good thing. Like me saying earlier, I decided I was going to take 6 months to be serious about it. That's a totally different thing. That's a strategy. Okay. I wasn't saying that if I didn't get traction, I was saying that I knew I would get some traction because I was going to put in the time and the effort and I was confident in it. But the people that, kind of step in and it's their first day, or if they've even been around for a year and they say, oh man, there's nothing's happening. You have to, instead of looking at the business and saying it's so tough, okay, you have to look at the things that make it easier. You have to give yourself the competitive advantage. Can I tell? I know we're going kind of long, but can I tell this from a screenwriting perspective, for example? Okay, I'll just use screenwriting. When I first started screenwriting, and again, I had produced for years, so it's not like I didn't know how many screenwriters were out there and all that other stuff. But it's different when you're doing it. And when I was doing it, I remember going to a panel where somebody said, let me tell you, man, it's tough out there. There are 50,000 scripts that get registered with the WGA every year. And those are just the ones that get registered. There are hundreds of thousands being written every year and being submitted around town, blah, 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 blah. Right. And everybody in the room got deflated, right? But I started thinking about that, and I started talking to people in the business, right? And here's what I learned after talking to a lot of people. Sure, there are 50,000 scripts that are submitted to the WGA every year. Probably 45,000 of them are complete garbage. And that's not a lie. Okay.
Sure,
it's just the truth.
Sure.
And people who are in the know and people who read these things and people who read for contests will tell you this. Okay. Then you sit there and you go, okay, out of those 5,000, and by the way, it's probably more than 45,000.
I was going to say it's probably more than 45,000.
Let's say it's 49,000 because I don't even think that's out of the realm. I don't mean shit, but not good enough because it needs to be great. Okay. So that leaves 1,000 scripts, right? Out of those 1,000, some people are going to have connections that are going to allow them to get reads, and a lot of people aren't. If you're one of those people that are going to get reads, maybe you're cutting it down to 500. Maybe you're cutting it down to 250. And I'm talking about a great script that gets reads, okay? So what I'm saying is, and I could keep going down the list because there's about 5 other things I could name, but the point of the matter is that once I started thinking about it in those terms, the first thing I said to myself was, I have got to write a script that is undeniably the best I can do. Okay. Sure. And then the second thing I need to do is make sure that I am doing everything in my power to win champions that want to go out there and tell other people that they know.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
You need to read this script, and I need to be making those relationships directly with people that can move the needle on my career. And that's all I set out to do. And within 2 years, I had a manager. Okay. And within, 6 months after that, I had, the paid option at Covert. And so because it shortened the game, because that's what I focused on. Right. So control what you can control. Don't listen to all the noise. Don't listen to all the naysayers. If you hear the statistics and they're negative, understand that for every negative statistic, there's a positive side to it. Be the positive side of it.
Now, can you tell me what book had the biggest impact on your life or career?
Man, that's a tough question. I know you sent me that question like 2 minutes before we went on the air, so you gave me a lot of time.
So I can at least say I sent it to you.
Spontaneous, you did send it to me. you bastard, you. It's tough to say one book. I mean, business-wise, there's been quite a few, and I think sometimes with business, it translates again because we're all entrepreneurs onto the creative side. So I did like 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel recently. I'm talking about things that are more recent. 0 to 1, Creativity Inc. I think is an amazing book.
Such a great book. That's
such a great book. And I mean, it gives you a look into the philosophy of all this stuff. And the philosophy of being a creative and the philosophy of creating sometimes in isolation, but then having to collaborate. It's very, very interesting stuff. I highly recommend that book. There's been so many. And, for the business side of things, I mean, from the industry side, the William Goldman books, Which Lie Did I Tell, are great because, again, the reason I love the Goldman books, I mean, they're timeless in a lot of ways, even though, he wrote some of the biggest movies of the 60s and 70s, and he still continued into the 80s and 90s. He's such a straight shooter, and there's no bullshit with him, which I love. He's unvarnished. But the great thing about it is that you realize when you read a book like that even the biggest and the best are on the grind always. Never get off the freaking grind. People, I say this to people all the time, okay? Everybody says, oh, God, become a star. It's so much easier. Hey, you get a manager. It's so much easier. And I'm like, listen, man, here's the 2 examples I'll give you. Spielberg had to go to India to get the money for Lincoln. Yep. Scorsese had the rights to silence for 30-something years or 20-something years, and nobody would make it with him. Okay. He had to find a champion. He had to find somebody that was willing to go to war and go to bat and that understood what he was looking to do. And it didn't end up working out great as far financially maybe. But the point of the matter is that even as big as he is, that he was on the grind with that property for over 20 something years. So, that's the reason I like Which Lie Did I Tell? That's not Which Lie Did I Tell? It's Adventures in the Screen Trade, the Goldman books, Adventures in the Screen Trade, and More Adventures in the Screen Trade. Who wrote Which Lie Did I Tell?
Oh, I forgot.
Is that Linson? Linson?
I think
Was that him?
I think so.
It might be him. That's a good book too. But the Goldman books are better. Rebels on the Black Backlot is another good one. It's all about the indie renaissance in the late 90s, and it follows the careers of Tarantino and P.T. Anderson and
Easy Riser, Raging
Bulls. All the reason I like all this, I wouldn't say they're life changing or they changed my life. What they did was they gave me enormous perspective into the inner workings of this business. And the more you understand the inner workings of this business, and the more you understand that nobody's going to greenlight a project as a favor. Okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people are like, wow, it must be easy. Like, wow, like you could just write something. No. Everything has to be excellent. You may open a door. You may get a door open because of a favor and because of your relationships. In fact, you will. Okay. But that's the thing. Your craft, your ability to build relationships gets you in the room, and your craft wins the room.
Amen. And what's the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
I think I'm still learning them. I think the film business, I mean, you always are, but I think the film business one, I think that, there was a piece of advice that I got when I was acting that changed everything for me perspective wise when I was going on auditions. And that was, I can't, especially in the theater actors in New York are a breed unto themselves. I mean, everybody, goes on all these auditions, and then they, everybody goes and drinks, and, they go meet,
right.
They go meet down by Broadway at all the places that the Broadway actors go, who are, by the way, even the ones on Broadway are bitching just as much as the ones that can't get jobs anywhere.
Right.
And, I went in and I'm like, this casting director, the table, this, and this experienced actor who was a friend of mine just turned to me at one point and he pulled me to the side and he just said, they want to like you, right? They want to hire you, right? They don't want to think you're bad. They don't want to think you're not right. They want to think you're right. Their job is to find you. You know what I mean? And it put me on my heels because I looked at everything as being sort of adversarial.
Right.
Because this is such a business of no. And that's the thing. I mean, we hear no every freaking day, and it is a business of no. That made me sit there and say, okay, all right, everybody has a job to do in this business. Everybody has somebody to answer to in this business. Everybody. If you're a producer, you got to answer to the financiers. If you're a filmmaker, you got to answer to producers, and so on and so forth. Okay. Nobody wants to work with people who make their jobs more difficult. So that life lesson of sort of, look, if you get criticism, like especially for people who get notes, if you're a filmmaker, if you're a screenwriter and you get notes, to not be defensive. Even if you think the note sucks, you got to fucking digest it. You got to parse it, and you got to apply it either in the script or in the film, or apply it to a lesson, apply it to something, apply it in a way that you say, you know what, I reject that, but that's fine. Everything, you need to absorb everything, and you can't be worried about deflecting everything at all times, because at the end of the day, you're going to run into people that know what the hell they're talking about. You're going to run into people that don't know what the hell they're talking about. You're going to run into two people that know exactly what they're doing, who have completely different opinions about your art or your talent. It doesn't matter. It's how you navigate it. And if you navigate it with an openness and with class and with charm, but inside just understanding that everything that comes out of somebody's mouth is a piece of information to be digested, parsed, and then applied in some way, that's how you're going to win. And that was the lesson that I kind of took away from that conversation. And that helped me enormously when I went out for my first piece of screenwriting feedback and was like, for 5 minutes, I was like, these assholes don't realize what a great freaking script I wrote. Are you freaking kidding me? And then all of a sudden I sat there and I thought about my friend, my acting friend, and I went, well, maybe they do know a little bit more than I do, and maybe I should listen to this. And once I did that, I had a totally different perspective on things. And so that's the biggest lesson, I think, as it relates to the business.
Now, where can people find you?
My home address?
Yes, home address, if you could, please.
Address and work address? They can find me. Obviously, you can find me on Stage 32. If you're on Stage 32 and you just put literally stage32.com/RB, you'll go right to my account. But if you haven't signed up for Stage 32, when you do, the first thing you'll see on your wall is me. That's an automated message, but every other post that you see from me on that site, and I think it's over 300,000 now, I've been told by my tech team, is me. It's me responding. So you could feel free to write me, send me a DM. I am on Twitter and Instagram, like I said earlier, at RB Walks Into a Bar. Exactly what it sounds like.
Of course.
RB Walks Into a Bar. And as one of my friends says, and nobody walks out. And also on Medium, RB Walks Into a Bar for some of my content. And obviously the book, Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers, Indie Film in the Power of the Crowd, is on Amazon.
RB, this has been an epic interview as always, sir. Epic conversation as always, my friend.
Absolutely, always my favorite, bro.
Thank you. You dropped some major knowledge bombs today to the tribe, and I think this is this should be included. This conversation should be included in every copy of crowdsourcing for filmmakers. Put a little USB in it. I'm just saying.
Hey, listen, I'd be down with it if I can get my publisher to answer my emails. I don't know.
Thank you, my friend, as always.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it, brother.
As promised, there were some major knowledge bombs dropped in this episode. RB, thank you so much for coming on, spending the time with the tribe, and hopefully educating everybody a bit about crowdsourcing and the importance of crowdsourcing when trying to create a sustainable independent film career. Now, if you want to get RB's book, you can head over to indiefilmhustle.com/230 for the link to his book and everything else we discussed in this episode. And before I go, I got two announcements. If you have not signed up yet for the Bulletproof Screenplay podcast, my new podcast dedicated to just the craft and business of screenwriting, head over to screenwritingpodcast.com and sign up on iTunes. Or you could just go to bulletproofscreenplay.com and it'll take you to the website where you can sign up through any of your favorite providers. And announcement number 2, don't forget, April 9th, we are releasing Susan Lyon's Indie Film Producing Masterclass. It's over 6 hours of a workshop that she usually charges $2,500 to attend, and I convinced her to let me record it so I can bring it to you guys, the Indie Film Hustle tribe. It is invaluable, and it'll teach you everything you need to know about how to raise money, contracts, SAG deals, everything you need on how to produce an indie film. And if you want to get in early and get early access plus a small discount as well, email me at ifhsubmissions@gmail.com. I'll put you on the list and you will get the course a little earlier than everybody else, and you're going to get a discount from the normal $90 price tag. And that is the end of this episode, guys. Don't forget, Wednesday we'll be releasing a new episode of the Bulletproof Screenplay podcast as well. And then you will have another brand new episode at the end of the week. Thank you guys for all the support. And please make sure to tell as many people as you can. If you can tell 5 friends about the podcast, about what we're doing at Indie Film Hustle to get the word out for everybody, to help as many filmmakers as we can, I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And as always, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.